Hello everyone. Next presentation regarding environmental impact assessment. This is the in short we have to be called EIA, a systematic process of identifying a future that is the consequences of the current or proposed actions. What is that action? That is the transparency, certainty, participation, practicability, then flexibility, that cost effectiveness. Next one is credibility, and last one is accountability. These are the EIA goals. We have to be in short environmental impact assessment, that is also an environmental auditing, that is EA. That EA goals, that environmental impact assessment is a tool designed to identify the predict the impact of a project on the geophysical environment and on man's health and well-being, to interpret and communicate information about the impact, to analyze site and process alternatives and provide solutions to sift out it immediate the negative consequences on man and the environment. Is introduction regarding EIA. That environmental impact assessment is an assessment of the possible positive and negative impact that is the proposed project may have on the environment, considering natural, social, and economic aspects. EIA is always the necessary for a pulp and paper project, whether it is a new mill or the expansion of the existing facility. As for any industrial project of importance, EIA means the avoiding environmental disturbances that are always much more expensive to correct after their occurrence than before. It is also important to underline that very few projects have been deemed not viable merely because of the cost of the pollution control, and the modern environmental control in a new plant is less than 3% of the initial investment. According to the International Association of Impact Assessment, that is IAIA, the process of identifying, predicting, evaluating, and mitigating the biophysical, social, and other relevant effects of development, that is the proposals prior to major decisions being taken and commitment made. Today, there is a worldwide evidence that man cannot ignore the quality of the environment. The environmental issues must be addressed as soon as possible during project planning. There should not be any hesitations in a project or a process at any early stage, or in proposing alternatives to any project which would have a very detrimental impact on the environment, as is the phase for projects which are not economically or financially valuable. In the same way, the economic, financial, institutional, or technical analysis, EIA is an integral part of the project. EIA is the began to be used in the 1960s as a part of a rational decision making process. It involved a technical evaluation that would lead to objective decision making. EIA was made legislation in the US, that is United States, in the National Environmental Policies Act, that is called NEPA, in 1969. The main steps in EIA's process is: first step is screening, second one is scoping, third one is prediction and mitigation, fourth one is management and monitoring, and last one is that is auditing. Environmental auditing is the management tools used by industry to evaluate its environmental performance. That is, EIA is an EA is only implemented in processing sites. The definition of the EA describes precisely the goals of this environmental tool, as written in the Environmental Auditing Technical Report by UA, that is the management tool comprising and systematic, documented, periodic, and objective evaluation of how well environmental organization, management, and equipment are performing in the aim of helping the safeguard the environmental, which is to be including in environmental audit. What is the screening? That screening often results in a categorization of the project, and from this a decision is made on whether or not a full EIA is to be carried out. Then next step is scoping. What is scoping? This is the process of determining which are the most critical issues to study and will involve community participation to some degree. It is at this early stage that EIA can most strongly influence the outline proposal. The facilitating management and control of environmental practices is the assessing compliance with company policies, which would include meeting regulatory requirements. Then what's going on? The contents of EIA is different level. There is detailed prediction and mitigation studies follow scoping and are carried out in parallel with feasibility studies. The main output report is called an environmental impact assessment, that is contains a detailed plan on managing and monitoring environmental impacts both during and after implementation. Contents of EIA. The first content is executive summary. In a few pages, it allows anyone, that is specialist, to understand the different uh, the project environment. On this environment, the human well-being and safety, and to be informed of the alternatives chosen and the mitigating measures that have to be implemented. Next point is project descriptions and legal and administrative framework. That is, a brief description of the project is the necessary with all of site extensions and their interactions with natural and social components. All the regulations implemented within the EIA must be detailed here. Whenever we thinking about the screening and scoping, in screening and scoping it is important that people in charge of the protection of the environment, that is minister, borrowers, donors, NGOs, association, inhabits, can outline to the investors the limits of the EIA in time, space, and the type of the impact to be addressed, that is as well as the way of evaluating them and identifying the alternatives. Finally, an audit of EIA process is carried out some time after implementation. The audit serve a useful feedback and learning functions. That a description of the existing environment is precise data relevant to the site is required. That is describing intended course uses, quality, physical, biological, social, and economic conditions. The description must include other existing or proposed developments. The use of maps, graphs, drawings is very important for the better understanding of the situations. And key data gaps and uncertainties must be identified here. Then next is the flow diagram of the EIA process and parallel studies. We have to be studied of public constitutions. There are number of steps or number of process which is step by step created for the flow diagram of EIA. That is project screening, then prediction of impacts, then presentation of finding EIS, then next review of the EIS, next decision making, last one is post decision making monitoring. So this is all over public constitution level EIA process. Then analysis of alternatives and basis of the selection of alternative proposed means, that is the project description is completed by the precision descriptions of the different choices concerning process, sites, and alternative that is the investor has examined for the better protection of the environment and population concerned. A comparison of these different alternatives in terms of the potential impact and cost and benefit analysis is required. The basis on which each alternatives each chosen must be stated. This alternate this EIA, which is installment in India, the MOEF, that is called Ministry of Environmental and Forests, is the agency for environmental clearance. If necessary, it may consult a committee of experts with the compositions specified in schedule of notification. The main laws in India is Water Act in 1974. Next one is Indian Wildlife Protection Act in 1972. Next one is Air, that is Prevention and Control of Pollutions Act in 1981. Then next Environmental Protection Act is 1981. So drawback in India system is also available. What is the environmental issues of the project? Once the project is defined and all the alternatives thoroughly studied, this section presents the environmental issues around the final project. Each area of positive and negative impact must be defined in terms of its magnitude or reversible period of occurrence and nature, that is nature in primary and secondary site. At this stage it is very important to outline in detail in the different phases of the project and to address all the environmental uh, linked with each phase. All the drastically negative cannot be eliminated, must be identified. The mitigating measures must be proposed in the next stage. The environmental being multidisciplinary subjects, a multitude of agencies is involved in collection of environmental data. Now, to provide reliable data, Environmental Information Center, that is called EIC, has been set up to serve as a professionally managed clearing house of environmental information that can be used by all over MOEF, that is project proponents, consultants, NGOs, and other stakeholders involved in the process of environmental impact assessment in India. That is EIC. EIC means that is store data in GIS format and makes it available to all environmental impact assessment studies and to EIS stakeholders in a cost effective and timely manner. That is the next slide is explained, that is the benefits of conducting EIA. Mitigating measures means that is for all remaining negative mitigating measures have to be proposed. These measures must be realistic both technically and economically. The efficiency of each measure in reducing significant negative effects to an acceptable level must be assessed. An estimation of the required investment is necessary at this stage to verify the feasibility of the proposed measures. The benefits is facilitates the informed decision making by providing clear, well structured, uh, dispassionate analysis of the effect and consequences of proposed projects. The pre-implementation or early withdrawal or unsound proposals. Next one benefit is assist in the selection of alternatives, including the selection of the best practicable and most environmentally friendly options. Last benefit is results in best practice prediction and mitigation of adverse effects of projects. Environmental management and training and environmental monitoring plan is we have to be seen. In order to try and prevent environmental accidents, it is necessary to prepare a document to define the role of each person or group in the environmental management team. Uh, if in future a company and the other monitoring and training procedures undertaken to enhance the capabilities of the staff or team members or number of staff members or workers, these documents will naturally be updated once the plant is going to be built up. Then what is can't do? influences both project selection and design by screening out environmentally unsound projects as well as modifying feasible projects, that is mitigation of negative environmental and social impacts, guides formal approval, including the establishment of terms and conditions of project's implementation and follow up, mitigation of negative environmental and social impacts, that is serves as an adaptive and organizational learning process in which the lessons of experience are feedback into policy, institutional and project design enhancement of positive aspects. Then all our apprentices, all documents needed for understanding the chosen methodology, the references, the meeting with ministry, scientists, managers, affected groups, the names and all over system. The conclusion regarding environment and impact assessment is a very beneficial step to check whether the project is environmental friendly or not. Since economic development is the result of interaction between the natural resources and technology supported by design for people, so all human activity should be economic, social and environmental friendly. What is the design for environment? Design for environment focuses on efforts by producers and manufacturers to reduce product or process impact on the environment, and that environmental design and strategy is following. First one is a product development activity. In that particular activity, the first step is choosing, examining, designing, minimizing, improving, and reducing use of environmentally relevant substances. These are the steps of environmental designs, product designs activity. Then environmental activity is industrial ecology, that global warming, non-renewable sources depletions and life cycle assessment. Both the process and product and aids in the evaluation minimization of the environmental impact. Life cycle engineering have there are the engineering and design of products and processes to minimize the cost and environmental impact for the life cycle phases of a product. This life cycle analysis, also called in short LCA, the validation techniques is to identify environmental burdens that arise from products through the material suppliers, through manufacturers, use and still disposals. So delineation of all environmental effects irrespective of their positive positions in the life or their origin. So for example, suppose electricity generation, infrastructure and other items which are not be directly influenced by the designer or industry. That LCA does not adequately describe product in of life issues, difficulties in defining boundaries, embedded toxicity, emissions and environmental impact of end of life treatment system. Then engineering design is design have to use product information available to design engineers and recycling technology developers, that is early in the development cycle. Design for the process producibility, then product variety, supply chain, recyclability and serviceability. Design for environment as part of the design to understand the cycle of the product and its impact on the environment at each of its life stages. Business strategy foundation. Initially, the companies are learning the hard way how to develop appropriate environmental strategies. These strategies have the different level strategies. First one is a primary interest, that is technical and technological approaches. Second, understand the products, the product development process, the company and the company stakeholders. Next one is critical phase for deciding the product strategy is product definition. Next one is product definition have encompasses the upfront product development activities that considering the following. This is the business strategy foundations.